All right, well, I'll kick things off, and I know there'll be more people joining us as we go. But I see it's great to see a lot of people joining us today during your lunch hour. Those of us who get lunch these days in this new COVID environment, I think we just work right through those lunch hours and snacks. But thanks everyone for joining us. Welcome to our fourth conversation in the Companies Growing Companies series, which is a collaboration between Health Cities and Invest Alberta. And before we dive into today's session, I'd just like to ask all attendees to share in the chat where you're from, what company you're with, just that we can see the breadth of the group that we have online today. And while you're doing that, maybe I'll just introduce myself and the two organizations that partnered to create this series. So my name is Lynette Tremblay. I'm the Vice President Investor Services with Invest Alberta. Invest Alberta, for those who aren't familiar, was created 2 years ago by the government of Alberta as an independent corporation focused exclusively on attracting companies, projects, talent, capital into the province so that we can grow the economy and diversify the economy of Alberta. And our partner in this, and it really truly was the idea of Health Cities to create this. Health Cities is a not-for-profit corporation, Canadian not-for-profit corporation that works with clinicians, innovators, charity organizations, and companies, and of course, other corporations like us, to develop new models of care that drive better health outcomes and economic growth in the health sector. And so our two mandates work really well together. The reason that we started this is, as I said, it relates to both of our mandates. So with Invest Alberta, in attracting investment into Alberta, it's really important that we showcase what we have here, the assets, the ecosystem, and the companies that we have here are absolutely assets and part of Alberta's value proposition. And from a Health Cities perspective, Health Cities is focused on supporting health innovation companies by connecting those companies with other businesses in the sector. And so that was the intention behind this whole Companies Growing Companies series, is both connecting the companies, but also us being able to promote what we have globally. So I talked about why we created Companies Growing Companies from our perspectives, but why is it important to you, the companies and the innovators in the ecosystem? I sort of mentioned it, it's truly to help build and scale companies in Alberta without leaning on other jurisdictions. So it's this mutually reinforcing collaborative ecosystem we're trying to help foster. And it is to create a platform for companies entering the Alberta market to plug and play, but also to ensure companies here are ready to compete globally from the start. And certainly being able to compete globally is more important now than ever. What we hope that you'll learn over the course of these different sessions. And so if this is your first session with us, please go and check out the videos from the previous ones. And we hope that you'll learn how to navigate collaborations with non-traditional health partners, experiences with entering the health sector in Alberta, maybe for the first time. And that's why some of the companies we bring on here, they share their experiences, lessons learned, maybe some failures, and also navigating the unique subsector of long-term care, aging, and senior health. That's specific to this particular conversation today. At this point, I'm going to introduce, I've created all this suspense. I'm going to introduce the panel members that we have today. We've got three amazing panel members that are going to join us. So Sara is the director with Best Buy Health. Henry is business operations and technical lead, also with Best Buy Health. And then Michael is with AgeWell, Network of Centers of Excellence. That's a bit of a tongue twister for me. And he is the business development and industry relations manager with AgeWell. So we've got Sara, give us a wave, Henry, and Michael. So a little bit about each organization. So Best Buy Health, and it's funny because for those of you familiar with Best Buy, you might not think health, but they're a strong believer that technology can make life work better at any age. Their services and technology are used to help caregivers enhance digital skills and expand the reach of businesses that specialize in care. And AgeWell, Michael's organization, is a network of industry nonprofit organizations, government, care providers, caregivers, end users, and academic partners. I think I've got the whole list there, working together to use high quality research that drives innovation to create technologies and services that benefit older adults. And so that is quite a synergy between those two organizations. Today, they're going to be talking to us about examining non-traditional partnerships and new players in health, emphasizing on the long-term care aspect, obviously aging and senior health sectors. Sara, Michael, and Henry are each going to give a bit of a presentation. And then once their presentations are done, we're going to be able to open it up to a Q&A. But I do encourage everyone to pop questions into the Q&A function while the presentations are going on, because we don't expect you to remember them. And then once they're done, we'll pull some of those questions from the Q&A, and we'll get through as many as we can in the time that we have. And so with that, I'm going to stop talking because you didn't come here to hear me. And I'm going to turn it over to our three panelists to make their presentation. Who's headed out first?
I think that would be me on that.
Okay.
So
Michael's the lucky first mover on this panel. All right, Michael, take it away.
Yeah, thanks for the kind introduction. I think that was great. Captured a little bit of an overview of AgeWell, and I'm happy to now get into a little bit more of that and hopefully share some information that that'll be helpful with the audience today. So I'm just going to share my slides, and hopefully everyone can see those. So as mentioned, my name is Michael Chrostowski, and I lead business development and industry relations at AgeWell. And we have been a network that's been around for about 8 years at this point. We are federally funded, and we support research into technologies benefiting older adults and caregivers. So AgeWell itself has been doing this work to fund research through universities. And to date, we've funded that through about 46 universities and research centers. We have built up partnerships in industry, the not-for-profit sector, academia, government, as well as different community groups. And those have been partners that have joined us on the projects that we fund, as well as at the network level. We also support startups in this space. So we have 56 what we call age tech startups from across Canada that are in our startup affiliate program. Some of them have spun out of research we funded, others have partnered with researchers to validate their technologies and solutions, and then still more have come into the network to be connected to different partners. And throwing around the word network a lot, that's really a key part of who we are, is to connect those dots between the different stakeholders, whether that's startups, over 250 researchers, the trainees that have gone through our program, so PhD, postdoc, and early career professionals that have done training on aging and technology through our network, and a host of other collaborators. And of course, at the center of all of it are the older adults and caregivers, and we really strongly believe in engaging with them throughout all the work that we do. So not just to test technologies, but to provide their insight and input from the very earliest stages of development. And I'll speak a little bit more to that as well. So I always like to start off my presentation with this stat that came out through a survey we ran through Environics. There's a lot of preconceived notions about technology and older adults, and this was just a result that we found through our polling that showed that a lot of older adults are confident with using technology, and they do believe that it can help them in numerous ways. So it's really just about making sure that the right solutions are there, the right support is there for those who need it as they're getting more comfortable, but to not assume that technology and these kinds of innovations are not going to be usable by most older adults, because that's certainly not the case. So I want to, just as I talk a little bit about what we do, speak to the kind of different sectors where we're active. So we've supported innovations through startups in a range of kind of the continuum of where older adults reside, or the challenges they may face, or the goals they have for life. That includes active living through technologies that can help monitor health and wellness. That includes things like creating greater autonomy through technologies that can help with assistive devices and let people engage with their surroundings in a way that they're comfortable with. And that obviously also includes giving you greater control of your surroundings, and again, that's feeling of autonomy. But in some cases, that'll also work well with caregivers, so that they can provide and use their time for the things that matter, conversations, engaging in social activities with the older adults that they may be caring for, and not necessarily doing some of the more menial tasks. So that we feel that technology has that space where it can be very beneficial to not replace the human touch, but to enable investment of time into other things. So just kind of going through on that continuum, we have solutions. Actually, Virtual Gym is based in Alberta, where we've co-created solutions to enable older adults to stay active, and especially during the pandemic, where there are restrictions, to be able to do so at home. Obviously, robots is a thing that people always think about technology, and certainly we have different forms of robots we've supported. And then going to long-term care or hospital settings, there's the ability for technology to support caregivers and older adults through things like advanced bed-to-bed transfers that reduce risk for caregivers to injury. So with that, I think I want to transition now from our experiences with all of these startups and SMEs about lessons that we've learned and that I'd like to convey here to the audience. And the first, maybe not surprisingly for those that know Agewell, is just the value of co-creation. So, obviously when there are good ideas people come up with, it usually doesn't just come out of nowhere. You may have had that idea because of an experience of a loved one, or you may have seen a problem that felt really important to address, and there's a great idea that comes out of it. And I would never take anything away from that and the importance of that. But there's a difference between having to sell and get a buy-in on a great idea versus working with stakeholders from early stages, going through that co-creation process so that the solution you're developing can pivot or be modified as needed, so that it ends up being adopted. Because what's a great idea for one person or even a small group of people doesn't necessarily scale to a large enough population to sustain a business. And I think that's another piece of, general advice about looking at older adults or caregivers as a segment for businesses. It's, if you've met one older adult, you've met one older adult. It's not like a group that's a monolith. There's a lot of variability in there, and to understand that, to understand how your product and your business can address those varied needs, it's great to have that engagement early on, and that can be challenging at times, but it's something we've seen work. So I think that can inform obviously the product roadmap, and it's something that we've tried to do by connecting people to older adults, but also by working with partners, including Best Buy Health, but also those in home care and other sectors to do things like develop this white paper that's referenced here that takes someone through a journey map of the life of an older adult at home, which again varies quite a bit, but giving an example of that and providing points of entry where technology can have a beneficial impact. And we talk about things like being user friendly, helping people get connected, being ethical. So how can homes be smart, for example, but still have all of that data sharing be ethical? And in this white paper, the approach we took is getting these key questions that innovators, startups, engineers can ask themselves when they're working on technologies or innovations, to ensure that they're more likely to be appropriate and adopted by older adults. And I'm kind of trying to fit everything in here in this time, but I do want to say that there are a range of success stories we've seen when those approaches have been taken. And that can be companies that work directly with, let's say, a retirement living provider, and we're developing their technology in conjunction with their users and their staff, so that they pivoted several times. And to name them, it's a company called Wellbe that Agewell supported. And by pivoting, they went from something that was hardware to a software-based solution that they probably wouldn't have been able to figure out as quickly if they hadn't worked directly with those end users. And now they're very successful, and they're going to be available through sites across North America. And I think co-creation is a big part of that. And some more examples were in those previous slides. All those startups work closely with older adults to get to where they are. So, just to kind of reference again the power of networks, it's obviously what AgeWell believes in. We have a diverse group of partners, and we believe in building those strong relationships, understanding the goals of the different partners, and then trying to find those synergies. And that applies to the SMEs and startups or the bigger partners. We try to find ways that we know that they can work together, maybe meet some unmet needs, but also leverage each other's strengths and address gaps. At the center of that are the older adults and caregivers always. And we obviously always try to include them, whether it's the projects we fund or the startups and industry members that we work with. We find ways to leverage the insights that older adults from our network can share as well. So I'll just quickly give some examples here of what we've done in network. So as I mentioned, we have a startup affiliate program, and for any SMEs that are in this space that are not a part of our network, you can feel free to reach out to us. I'm sure our contact information will be shared. But basically, the kinds of things we've done, as you see in this table, is we've taken some of these partners and we've introduced them to different startups at various stages, even quite early in some cases, and they helped co-create those effective solutions. And we take the same approach with researchers, and I won't be the one to speak as much about that, but we've obviously seen great success there with one of our innovation hubs in Ottawa and Best Buy Health. So my last slide here that I'll end it off with is, we really want to raise awareness for age tech startups and age tech innovators in Canada. So AgeWell has worked with an idea that's kind of taken hold internationally, and we've put forward this age tech startup map for Canada. This is by no means complete. There are many more to be added here, and they'll probably be added every quarter or so. But it's to help people get a sense of where Canadian startups are active in the space, and they're categorized by 8 challenge areas that AgeWell kind of developed as the key challenges faced by older adults and caregivers. We didn't do that on our own. We had town halls pre-COVID, and we had a lot of engagement with older adults and caregivers to define these 8 key challenge areas. And we look at the lens of these at most of the things we do, including mapping these startups. So with that, I'm going to end my presentation so that my partners and friends at Best Buy Health have time for theirs, but I'll look forward to questions later on as well.
Thank you, Michael. I guess I'll go next. Just gonna pop up my screen here. So hopefully everybody can see my screen at this point. I'm Sara from Best Buy Health, as already mentioned, been Best Buy for past 22 years. Obviously, technology is a passion of mine, as you can hear. So at Best Buy, our mission statement continues to be enriching lives through technology and bringing our customers close to, achieving their passion as much as possible or pursue it. Within that vision statement, there are 3 unique things we're going after in Best Buy Health. So we are in support of aging in place. We also very much believe in empowering older adults, as well as improving the quality of life for them, as well as for their caregivers. In doing so, we always have to have our quick fact base. Canada is not getting any younger, as we already know. So we're having less kids, and less of them are actually getting into possibly healthcare. We continue wanting to stay put for as long as possible. That's the latest survey is what's shown, and we are living longer by 10 years on average compared to what would have happened in 80s. So that's great news in a way. With that, we have done, and I guess took a scan of Canada, understand how we can apply ourselves in Best Buy Health. As you already know, probably known for us, to apply ourselves in that context in the health industry. But we do know there are 3 gaps we can apply ourselves as a national footprint in Canada, and one of them has to do with the very much item that I just talked about. We are not having as many people empowered within Canada to go find solutions on their own, them being older adults. So we have a service called Digital Citizen. I'm just going to touch on it very quickly. Helpful Home, which a lot of it has to do with aging in place. and trying to augment the human resources as much as possible, and then expand reach, which is a service I'll talk to you about in a little bit. So digital citizens are all about empowerment of the older adults. We are trying to support the digital equity in our business, in a service model that's coming up, and that very much came from the transition of experiences for older adults as we all experienced the pandemic. So everything you see on this screen have switched places in terms of physical space. So digital citizen is ultimately to address the needs the older adults have to, fish on their own, for lack of a better term. So being able to explore, learn on their own, and also get support on their own. That's a program that we're offering to folks who live independently within communities or within congregated living or within a facility that have chosen to join. So we try not to leave anyone behind as much as possible. We do show up for the independent folks as well as for the organizations who choose to partner with us to have Geek Squad on site to support such ventures. Our hope is, our unicorn at the end is, we do leave citizens feeling a lot better about themselves at the end of the day. So those are the tech supporter communities we hope to support with. Jumping onto Helpful Home, as I said, it has got to do with aging in place for as long as possible. We are focusing on human needs as much as we can. So here is what we have. In fact, a result of a workshop we have held together with Health Cities, with a whole bunch of wonderful folks who shared their expertise to tell us what are the key, some of the human elements we can support being an industry that we are. And with that, we ultimately define a persona we want to go after. Yes, Raul is an active aging person. I'm actually aging as I'm talking to you, so we are actively aging, but there are needs that Raul needs support with in order to stay put. We do know picking, implementing or interconnecting technology is not an easy task. So Helpful Home is meant to bridge some of those gaps in terms of, we spent the last 4 years almost and try to understand what the needs are coming from the spectrum of care. And then trialing technology is one thing that Henry's going to focus on, as well as how do we make the selection easy and how do we make sure our resources are trained on these unique human needs by the time we show up for them, and how do we make sure that we kind of have their back throughout the entire adoption cycle is one thing that Helpful Home focuses on. And this is our imaginary, non-realistic 3-story home for Raul that we hope by the time we're done, he can use his home in more effective ways in order to continue to enjoy life. And very quickly, Expand and Reach is a kind of service that Henry will also touch on a little bit as part of his presentation. But really, our job is not necessarily support what we sell on the shelf, but also work with innovators out there who have proven track in terms of efficacy as well as ethics, which is another reason why we are happy to partner with AgeWell. And again, to the why in a bigger way in the following slides. But really, what our job is to show up where we can apply ourselves in a non-medical grade, kind of consumer grade, electronic grade technology, where we can become experts in the type of technology that we do not sell ourselves, and then help businesses who are having a hard time, growing arms and legs across Canada and pretty much become a national provider, and then become the implementation partner by becoming A, good at the technology, B, good at the needs of their clients, as well as showing up in places that they don't normally cannot resource and ramp up on their own. So these are the kind of facilities we show up in order to implement and support that technology. And why the partnership with AgeWell? So, I so much talked about what we're good at, but I'm also gonna kind of get into the space of vulnerabilities. There are so many things we're not good at. So health was a space that was very foreign for us. When we first got started, we had some early naive, ideas around what the market needed, and those are some of the scars we're hoping to show you during this talk today around how to not to go about thinking about your business as much as possible. And one of the immediate needs we identified as a partner who can has expertise and comes to age tech, as well as have resources that we can partner with in order to validate the effectiveness of our solutions and technology. And of course, have an advisory group who tell us if this is not good, then what does better look like? And we couldn't find any other better partner than Aghvami, because of their expertise in that space as well. All the other reasons Michael mentioned are opportunities to partner with research partners, and SAM3 being a prominent one out of Carleton and Briere that we partner with, in order to validate what we're doing is actually going to do what we're imagining it to do at the end of the day. And this partnership has been coming close to 3 years. In fact, it's been very effective in that space. And checking that is important, and you learn a little bit more about it as well. And we're happy to answer any questions, because we do know once technology is validated, the solution, I call it, and it does go into homes or in hands of the care recipients or the older adults or their caregivers, it actually leaves an amazing impression. And the one thing we have learned is that happiness is the ultimate, feeling we're going for at the end of the day. And as some of the common, shared sentiments, as you can see on the slides, are relieved. So people are feeling better once a solution goes in. Another reason why it's important for us to continue to working with Aghvami in that space. So that's my part. I'm going to stop sharing and pass it on also to Henry, and thank you so much.
Sorry, I'm just muted here. Thanks so much, Sara and Michael. I really appreciate it. So I'm actually here to talk a little bit more about how partnering can help you grow. And my name is Henry Trong, as we mentioned earlier on. So I've been actually with Best Buy Health and Best Buy actually as a whole for the last 15 years, mostly working through our Geek Squad teams, doing service development, actually coming up with a lot of service programs such as smart home installation services and other services along those lines. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is a little bit more about the survival rate on Canadian startups. As we all know, it's a tough business out there in general, and the 3-year survival rate for Canadian startups is 63 to 66% approximately, according to Stats Canada, and that's for product and service-based businesses. Now, that's a little bit scary. That's a scary number. That's like almost a 40% failure rate there, but there's a lot of different reasons why they fail, and I'm going to go through a little bit of that. So CBI Insights talked about some of the top reasons why businesses fail. So 38% ran out of cash, 35% didn't necessarily have a market need, 20% got outcompeted, and 19% had a flawed business model. There's some other reasons in there. And of course, we all know as individuals that are running businesses, none of these are the be all end all on why someone may have failed. There's always a multitude of factors that will go into that. And there's no one solution, of course, to solve any of these either. But there are some ways that you can overcome a few of these issues. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how partnering with some organizations, such as Best Buy Health or other organizations similar to us, may be able to help you achieve your growth and your scale, and do so without hopefully running out of cash or running into any of these other issues. So to start off with, I wanted to talk about the innovation matrix. If you haven't seen this already, Alberta Innovates has created this great innovation matrix, which is really useful in terms of a checklist to make sure that you're covering off a lot of your basics before you're trying to scale up and making sure that you've validated your solutions. Now, something I wanted to mention as part of this, though, is Best Buy Health and other organizations where we're looking to help support you in scaling out or growing. We're really hoping that you've already gone through the steps, validated your product, made sure things are working, you've done your tests. Now, if you haven't done all of those steps yet, that's where organizations such as Aghvami and partnering with researchers and implementers such as Aghvami go a long way in making sure that you can actually do all of those validation steps, make sure you're getting the product out there, making sure you're meeting with other industry partners so that you can continue to grow yourself, so you're ready to scale up and you're ready to grow your business. And that's really where Best Buy Health and other vendors that can support you will really come in. So what I'm going to focus on today and talk a little bit about some ways that you can prevent some common pitfalls that I run into on a regular basis when I'm working with organizations that are coming to us to grow their business. And so I wanted to share some of these tips to help make sure that you don't run into the same traps as well. Hopefully this can save you some time and money as well when you're focusing on growing your business, so that you're not having to go back to the drawing board and figure things out from scratch again. So I'm going to start off with something pretty straightforward, it feels like, but something I think is really important. It's really important to get that information out of your brain and get it down on paper. It's so often I actually speak to technical founders or we're meeting new companies and I'm wowed by their product. They've really sold me on their message and what they're trying to do. But once we're trying to figure out how we can actually work together, how we can support them in actually going out and implementing their product for them, they don't have their manuals, they don't have guides, they don't have all of the material that's needed by an organization like Best Buy to be able to go out and actually do that support for them or understand exactly what is needed on that support. And quite often what we run into is we'll be working with an organization, things will be going great, and then we'll start asking for all of this material and it's not available. So, you know, a few days later, a couple follow-ups, I'll get a hastily created Word document with some scribbled out instructions on how to run their product or how to install their product. And of course, you guys know how that, what ends up happening in those situations. So the companies that I really love working with have actually taken that time to sit down, think through that entire process of what the support they really need. They've taken that time to figure out, you know, how someone else can actually implement their product or service and how they can go about getting what they need from their partners. And this really helps them in terms of speeding up that time when they're working with us. It gives us a better chance to review exactly what they're looking for so that we can create a more detailed scope of work and actually create a more accurate estimate and quote for them so we can support them quicker without having to go through and actually develop the scope of works for them. Because there's definitely been some companies out there where we've partnered with and they're great, they have an amazing solution, but all the knowledge is with the founders or the knowledge is with the programmers. It's not actually something that they've gone and created those documentations. And so we've had to sit down with them and actually spend that time to build out their entire process and operations and their manuals so that we can actually support them. But it takes a lot more time and that added, you know, many months to the process. So something that I wanted to share, actually, it's a little bit of a secret about what Geek Squad does is Geek Squad actually installs a lot of product for customers that are designed to be installed for themselves. So essentially we're installing do-it-yourself type product. Now, a lot of our agents actually use the same manuals and instructions that end users would be using. And now, don't get me wrong, Geek Squad agents actually are amazingly talented. They are, you know, in terms of individuals, they're passionate about technology. They have natural curiosity about how things work, and they love helping people. But they aren't all engineers. They're not all developers. So it's really important when you're going through and actually building out a lot of your materials that you're focusing on the experience of the consumer, but also of who else might be installing it. Because if the installers have to go through and they have to actually be able to figure out, convert binary from hex and back again, you're probably not going to have a great installation experience and your client's probably not going to have a great experience as well. So it's really important to think that through when you're developing your materials so they're as simple as possible. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide here. So along the same lines as, you know, just getting the information down in terms of how to run your product or install your product, something I want to talk about is the customer journey and just your processes in general. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of times when we run into working with organizations where they haven't actually explored this entire process of what it looks like from beginning to end of what a client will go through in terms of obtaining their product, having it installed, getting support on the product. And that entire journey, if no one knows what it is, or it's unclear where people fit in, it makes it much harder for the organizations and for partners to be able to come in and work with you, because they don't know where they're going to be focusing their energy and where you're looking for them to support you on. So it's definitely worth taking that time, pause, understand what your customer journey is, exact customer journey is going through as it is today. Determine where all those black holes, those touch points are, and the areas of friction that your clients may be running into. And then, come up with another map in terms of where we fit in to help support you on that. Because at the end of the day, companies like Best Buy and other organizations are potential vendors essentially are your customers as well. And we really need to understand what that whole journey looks like for your clients so that we can support you in making sure that these areas are addressed, and so we can actually identify where we can fit in best as well to support you. So it's really great working with founders that have really gone through and examined this process and know it all, because when they come to us and they talk to us about these, they know exactly what they need. They know exactly where we slot in. They often are the ones that are coming to us with all the detailed manuals and installation guides and everything up front, which makes it really easy for us to go ahead and work with them and partner to be able to grow their business. So the next one I wanted to speak on is just focusing back on your growth. So we talked a little bit earlier about some of those reasons businesses failed. 38% ran out of cash, 35% didn't find their market need, 20% got outcompeted, and 19% had that flawed business model. Now, obviously, you can't be everywhere at once, and this is where partnering with large national organizations can be definitely helpful, where we can actually help you expand geographically as you're ready for it. So instead of going and trying to fly everywhere or send install teams everywhere to actually do your installs, partnering with an organization such as Best Buy definitely helps out by making sure that you have an installation base nationally available that can be rolled out and implemented quickly. So for instance, Best Buy actually has 85% of Canadians are around 15 minutes from a Best Buy store. So it kind of gives an idea of what the reach is possible out there for different organizations. As you're continuing to grow, you don't have to worry about being everywhere all at once. Another point that I want to talk about is actually just really taking that time to focus on your product and your client experience. As we talked about on the last two slides, really honing in on that experience for your client is going to make it so much easier for you to grow your business when you're working with partners. And of course, you don't want to be focusing your limited resources on trying to build out things like logistics networks from scratch. So working with partners will be able to allow you to focus back on the product, back on the client experience, and allow you to have those partners to help you do that growth in the logistics side of things. And then one other thing to consider would be marketplaces. So an organization, marketplaces in general actually are growing in popularity, I think, across the board. And it's something that you can consider using marketplaces to help you grow and sell your product and market it, as they are areas of growth and a lot of large brands outside of just Best Buy, but you probably know Amazon, eBay, a whole lot of different marketplaces are popping up these days, Shopify, for instance, and these all help give you a leg up in terms of getting the message out there and that marketing message for your products. So I'm just going to run through a few quick tips and just review what we talked about. So if you're looking to work with a partner and grow your business, really focusing in on building that installer process and that UI as you would for your end user is really important. And again, the more simple and intuitive, the better result for you and your customers. And make sure you spend that time to develop all those manuals and user guides, develop your customer journey maps, take that time to really understand where those pain points are. And then know where your vendors and partners fit into that map, because I think that's so critical in terms of being able to quickly come in and work with a partner. And again, focusing on growing methodically is really helpful, and letting your partners do some of the heavy lifting with the expansion and logistics side of things, so you don't have to worry about finding different individual partners everywhere. And again, that national partnership can really help out with just focusing in on the overhead and making sure that you're not having long delays as you're expanding. And so there's a couple other areas, of course. I'm not going to talk through all of the points here, but in terms of Best Buy, we do actually do some work with our marketplace as well. And it's a great place to be able to do that marketing we talked about earlier and be able to go through and offer some of these features to a larger audience. And so if you are having products that you're looking at expanding out and you're looking for a place to market them or a place to display or sell them, it's definitely something worth considering. And we'd love to hear more from you, whether it's about your specific business or your needs or how we could help. health@bestbuycanada.ca is a great place to start off. And we can always talk more and connect you with other teams as well as needed.
Great. Thank you so much, all three of you. That was amazing. And in fact, you preemptively answered any questions I had in my head. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions left, but we'll give them some time to pop some questions into the Q&A function. We'll launch into some questions now. And I see we just have one here. So how would someone interested in working with Best Buy or AgeWell as a partner reach out, and to who? So maybe I'll go, Michael, to you first on AgeWell.
Sure. So probably the easiest approach is just to go through our website, and there are a number of ways to connect with us. One of them is our partnerships email. I know I left mine on my last slide, which I assume will be shared somehow. But yeah, there's a partnerships@agewell-nc.ca, which is the general intake email. So those would be the two.
I think it's great that you have a partnerships email. I think that speaks volumes. So that's great. And Sara, Henry, how should people connect to Best Buy Health?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much. So the best way actually is just if you're looking to reach out to us, you can email us directly at health@bestbuycanada.ca and just explain a little bit more about what you're looking for, what your products are. And if it's not our department directly that would be supporting on that, we can definitely help connect you with the right teams. As well, if you're looking on bestbuy.ca, there's actually a lot of different connection points on there and contacts directly on our contact us page to be able to link you to the different areas of our organization, whether that's marketplace or Best Buy for Business, if you're just looking to do like product purchases and whatnot as well.
Right. So I have a few questions, and we've got a few minutes left. So I want to see if we can get through a few of them. As somebody who has connected a lot of companies, but also forged partnerships myself, I certainly have heard and experienced that there's a lot of people when they potentially enter into a partnership, there's some nervousness and trepidation there, right? And a little bit of fear maybe. And it's unique to each person. So I'm wondering if you could each speak to a little bit about what you might have been nervous about or unsure about as you entered into this partnership, and how that either was or maybe wasn't resolved. I'm assuming things are going well, but through the process, did that sort itself out, or did you do something to kind of bring that to the forefront? Maybe Sara, why don't we start with you?
For sure. Going into the partnership with, I guess, any research entity, I think one of the concerns one could have is the big R word. I think this is going to take longer. When am I ever going to get my business to the market? So the one thing I would say is how we overcame that fear is literally just sharing our sheer concern. Our immediate contact is with Michael. Michael leads all the business collaborations and partnerships. So, what we presented was a proposal to run our collaboration just like a business, or a project, I guess I would say, start date and an end date with very clear expectation from both parties around what is it that we're looking for and what is it that the research partner is looking for, and pretty much holding ourselves responsible for the outcome. We define success factors, what is expected to happen at the end of the cycle, and are we achieving that? And the frequent touch base we keep so close around updating each other on the results, like literally running it as if you're going to be marked at the end of the exam or after trial. And that's one thing. I like to say, I'll definitely let Michael speak to that, to his view of it. But to us, that's something that worked because we want to get to Canada in time as we're aging. We didn't want this to be a 5-year cycle. So for us to get to the street per se, and if in a business term, that is the one thing we had to do to overcome. And I'm glad that fear was addressed early on.
Great. Well, so maybe Michael, from your perspective on your side of the partnership, what were you feeling going in, and how did that kind of evolve for you?
Yeah, well, I put quite a bit of emphasis on the people behind the partner and the company that we may work with. And so, having had the opportunity to engage a bit more with Sara at the time, I saw that there was that eagerness to engage with the sector and to learn, become more familiar with it. So there wasn't any concern in terms of how they'll approach others in our network, especially researchers. If there was anything, it would be more, we all can speak different languages when it comes to business, research, academia, and things like that. So it was how to ensure that any preconceived notions from either side could be addressed kind of easily and upfront, and to start building that openness and communication, which is obviously, it was easy with these partners, but nonetheless, even researchers, they have a certain view of maybe how industry may want to approach a space, and we just need to make sure to give an opportunity for I guess those lines of communication to open really early on and create that openness, and it certainly has worked out well.
Great. Henry, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. I like to keep everybody on their toes. So Henry, from your perspective, what was something that was a real value add to Best Buy Health out of this partnership that you didn't maybe anticipate, or that you couldn't have accomplished on your own without this partnership?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I'd probably say just being able to, well, outside of the networking and meeting a whole bunch of amazing organizations and individuals, I think that having that opportunity to work with researchers, learning more about that process, and then being able to actually work with them, develop out a lot of new studies that we've been working together on, has been really great in terms of just learning more about the space and learning more about how we can actually adapt our products and sort of where we're going after things to pivot essentially for our business, because I think pivot's sort of been the motto of COVID era for a lot of organizations, I'm sure, out there. And like I've mentioned, Michael mentioned as well, pivoting has sort of been instrumental to a few other companies. So for us, I'd probably say it's just learning about all of the different things that people are going through that we just weren't aware of before, because we didn't have access to all of the knowledge from these researchers and these amazing organizations.
It's an old adage, but it's true. You don't know what you don't know, and partnerships can really illuminate what you don't know and open new doors. Sara, anything to add to what Henry said there from your perspective?
I think Henry's answer was perfect. I mean, maybe the only thing I'll add as kind of something to think about for people thinking about partnerships as such is, not making a mistake of thinking that Aghvami would be like a marketing venue for them. It is very much a playground as far as discovery, understanding. The headline is self-check. So, for us to think that you're going to work with this wonderful academia, this is not a way for a doctor to walk away and start talking about your services. It is very much the value of understanding whether what you have works or not. Is it ethical or not? So, getting the thought of, not a marketing vehicle out of your head is very important up front. And we had to learn that very quickly and adjust to it happily. So that's the only other item I'll add to this question.
That's a great one. Michael, I'm going to come back to you. There's actually a question in the chat directed to you. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about your own startup experience. And, I know that, and I'll leave it broad like that, but I do know a lot of startups are always asking, what's a big mistake, or, lessons learned, kind of cautionary tale type stuff. But just generally, can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, and obviously there's probably so much to be said here, but I'll try to tie it to what we're discussing here. So, I had a startup in the hearing space. It spun out of research I was doing before then, and it was kind of developing these customized kind of computational model-based sound therapies for a hearing condition called tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears. So I started that based on research I had done. So you could see there where some of my learnings could be applied to a network like Aghvami, where we help researchers commercialize as well. With that startup, we were able to do a clinical trial, randomized control trial. We went through a regulatory process. And we provided the treatments through hearing clinics. So we had to build partnerships with hearing clinics across Canada, then eventually in the US, as well as a little bit overseas. The startup was obviously a big learning experience for me. And I found through that obviously when you're building something on your own and then with a small team, you need to wear a lot of hats and you need to learn quickly. But you can always benefit from good mentors and advisors and getting connections there. I think, again, going back to the whole co-creation piece, the challenge with some types of products like ours is you're not just looking at the end user. We need to also develop something similar to what Henry was saying that works for our sales channel, which in that case was the hearing clinics. And sometimes those things can, in a way, compete against each other. Whether it's on pricing or the way you make the technology accessible. So yeah, I mean, I certainly learned a lot that way. I found when it comes to health and the healthcare type space, there's getting buy-in from the end user, there's getting buy-in from the companies, especially if it's in the private sector that you're trying to sell through, but then there's getting buy-in from the actual frontline allied healthcare professionals. And in a lot of cases, those are the deal breakers. I mean, I'm not going to get into specifics, but I've heard stories maybe more south of the border where I've even seen like CEOs be chided by their frontline staff in that space. So it sometimes doesn't matter that you've got buy-in and all this excitement from even the CEO of a chain or an organization if what you're developing isn't going to work well for the frontline staff, and it gets into all the change management stuff and everything else. But there's so many things you need to consider when you have all those important stakeholders. And I certainly learned a lot about that before stepping away.
And there's a lot of similarities in approach and what you need to do between building good relationships with stakeholders and building good partnerships. It's all similar principles, which is a good segue into my final question for each of you. And we'll start with Sara to put Sara on the spot now. And so I'm wondering if you had one piece, and it's hard to choose one thing, but if you had one piece of advice related to partnerships, either before, during, or after, what would it be? What would be your sort of biggest takeaway, one thing you want people to keep in mind, Sara?
For sure. I think it would be a step before even calling out for partnerships, and it would be getting clarity on your solution before you even approach anyone. So the one thing that we've learned we didn't do well was identifying what the market needs. So marketing isn't going out there and pushing the shiny side of your products. It's actually bringing in what the market's asking for, and we present that internally to the rest of the organization to say, hey, I went out, I searched, and this is what people are looking for. So identifying the market representation, what market actually needs before you even go out and pick your partners is going to be a pivotal point, a very important point in any business. And again, it comes from experience.
That is absolutely a great one. And it's one that we try to even keep in mind with investment attraction, right? It's not about what we think is interesting. It's about what people want to invest in. So it's a great point. All right, Henry, you're up.
Yeah, so I'd probably say identify your pain points. Like, don't necessarily come in and like throw a solution that you're looking for me to provide. Come in with your pain points. Let us know where you're really running into those problems and why you're experiencing them, so that we can help come up with that solution for you, because it might be something completely different than what you're expecting.
Mm-hmm. Come with honesty and an open mind, not predetermined outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Michael, you're going to round out the group. What's your big takeaway?
Yeah, those were both great. I think what I would add to that is, when you're building that relationship with the partner, it's that cliche thing of like, you have 2 ears, 1 mouth. So, spend the time listening to what their goals are, and see where your alignment is. And of course, you have your own ideas, you're very passionate about them, but be willing to pivot and change, but at the same time, be willing to push and prod to see if maybe they can change their thinking. So it's a balancing act, but I think it goes both ways, and you just have to approach it with that humility, but also with that strength of conviction when it's necessary.
Great. This is a lifetime worth of knowledge and experience crammed into 1 hour. So I really appreciate your candor and openness and just all of the information that you've provided. And thank you for your time today. So thanks, Sara, Henry, and Michael. For anyone looking to learn more about the Companies Growing Companies initiative, visit healthcities.ca. And you can also sign up for Health Cities newsletter on the website to find out about future events and the next iteration of Companies Growing Companies. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.